to Navigating Change, the education podcast from Tybal Inc. I'm Pete Wright, and I'm here once again with Howard Tybal. Howard, how are you?
Doing great, Pete. It's been quite a travel week. And by the way, as you probably know, but not most of the listeners don't know, I just came back from a 10-day trip in Israel. And that was more than eye-opening and, something I should have done a long time ago. But you know what? Even at 56 years old, it's good to finally get to Israel.
Well, I am much chagrined to note that you did no live podcasting from Israel. We can take that offline, but just know that you were missed.
Yeah, I hear you.
We are taking on student success on the show today with some pretty big questions. How do we transform our institutions and learning models to meet the needs of tomorrow's students? We have a fantastic guest to join us, experienced in just this sort of change. But before we dive in, head over to tybalinc.com to learn more about our work in education. You can subscribe to the show for free. Just click the blue button, and we will let you know each time a new episode is released. And I should say, as a technical addendum, any Android users out there, Google Play has just announced support for a podcast directory. So if you're on Android and you use Google Play, you can find us. We were a launch partner in the Google Play store. So just do a search for Navigating Change. You should find us right there. Android users rejoice. José Bowen currently serves as the 11th president of Goucher College in Baltimore, Maryland. Currently is likely the most important word in that sentence, given the long and winding road President Bowen has taken to land at Goucher. His academic credits extend back decades as an educator, program director, and dean. He is an author promoting technological transformation in the classroom in his book, Teaching Naked. And to say he's an accomplished musician is a further understatement. He plays with jazz greats and has composed a Pulitzer-nominated symphony. Dr. Bowen, welcome to Navigating Change.
Hi, glad to be here.
So, Pete, you want me to dive in? Because I got a question.
I don't even know what we're going to talk about today.
That's good. I like when that happens.
I know. I feel like with all this music stuff, this could go way off the rails.
Oh, I would actually like to focus on the music, but maybe that's for another podcast, Dr. Bowen. So, I mentioned that I had just finished watching Beethoven as the Business TED Talk that you gave, and I was thinking about this in the context of when you talk about music, it is such a clear example as you paint a picture around disruption and how disruption in the story that you told, and we're going to make it available for others to watch this on our website, as a mechanism of demonstrating innovation. And when I think about higher education, it's clear also when I look at Goucher College's website, the About page, and the stories that you tell, it's really about breaking down silos. So I'd love to have you start off by talking a little bit about how did you go about, or how are you going about breaking down some of those academic and administrative silos to better meet the needs of the students where they are versus where we want them to be? Because when I look at this, I think that you are representing what students are interested in, and it's cross-disciplinary, but I think most people are struggling with this. And I know the people that we're working with have these questions. How do we break down these silos? So I'd love to, it's a big question, but I'd love you to tackle that any way you think is the best way to dive in.
Yeah, that's a big question. So, stop me in a half an hour or whatever you want. So, as with a lot of these complex, knotty problems, it's all of the above. There's no one magic bullet. You have to do a lot of things simultaneously. So, the first thing you have to do is establish trust.
Yes.
With faculty, with students. And so that, to me, is connected to transparency. So you've got to show everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. You've got to be out there talking about the issues. Related but separate is what I call, you have to light the burning platform. You have to demonstrate to people that the status quo isn't going to work, that there is a problem that has to be fixed. That's again, those of us who read the paper in higher education kind of know that, but there are plenty of people who've been doing what they're doing, and their classes are full, and they see what's the problem. So you've got to present the institutional picture, the whole picture. What's the problem? For me, that focuses on, the number of students who can actually pay is a finite number, right? And we can actually find out that number. If my consultants are right, it's about 5,500 students a year with SATs over 1,200 who can pay full freight. That's not a big number. And
no, it's not.
Those students have choices. And we'd all love to give it away for free and have everybody come for free. But the truth is, we all need someone to pay, or almost all of us need someone to pay. So, how do you attract those students? How do you provide value? And it's a competitive marketplace. So setting the stage for that, building trust, for that there has to be a case for change. And then the third piece or fourth piece for me is, I always start by talking about students. So we are a student-focused institution, and we talk about that all the time. That's a much easier place to start than, hey, you're doing something wrong, or we got to change that. Is what we're doing the best for students? Because everybody shares that interest in students. So for students, the key to me is that, more and more of our students are navigating college for the first time, their first generation. They don't have parents they can ask. We generally don't understand how complex and non-transparent college is.
Yeah.
So, I have lots of stories about my daughter who finished college a couple of years ago, but she would call me when I was a dean, and she'd ask me questions, and I'd think, wow, I thought that was obvious. And so, my favorites include, why do professors only assign the odd-numbered problems in math? I mean,
that's actually a very good question we have around here.
So I say, well, maybe the answers to the even-numbered ones are in the back, or maybe they just want to give you half as many problems to do, because there's always extras. And there's this silence, and she says, no, tell me the real reason. Like there's some sort of conspiracy. I mean, it's just not obvious.
That's right.
My other favorite story which is really relevant to student success is, I need this class. I'm a senior. I didn't get into the class. The semester started, or how do I got to have this class to graduate. What do I do? And so this is, of course, happening on text. And so I text back. I said, well, you email the professor and you say, and then I get this text back that says, and say what?
Right.
So on the one hand, we're all inundated with all of these emails from students asking us outrageous questions. But again, for some students, it's not obvious that you can go to ask a professor to get into a class that you need for graduation. So, figuring out what are the gaps in students' information, what do they not know, and the answer is almost everything about how college works. So that's the approach. It's about integrating services. It's about meeting students where they are.
Yes.
And understanding that we live here. This is obvious to us.
Exactly. We forget once we're experts or we're comfortable what it is to be a beginner.
Well, and also the truth is that faculty are weird, right? We liked school so much we're still here. I mean, that's weird. We never left. And also, we learned in spite of whatever methods were used. We were internally motivated. We liked our subject, whatever. That's just not normal. So,
it's interesting. I want to raise something with you that you started with as you began to lay out some of the fundamentals, and you started with trust, and then you spoke to transparency. And I just came back from a 2-day helping a school and helping the community looking at how they're going to embrace the change that the president is bringing. And he basically showed up when he first came to the school, a public institution, and he said, we're going to blow up the departments. And after people's jaw dropped because they didn't understand what that meant, they are going through a process that's unfolding but doesn't have enough detail yet for faculty, which is moving from colleges and departments to clusters. And it's a model that is being implemented in different ways, in different structures, and in one breath, and I completely get it, the faculty are going a little bit crazy with this because they want to understand where they're going to land. So when you came on to Goucher, and I look at, for example, your About page, and you talk about learn without limits, free to wander and wonder, more than a major, invent your future. I can tell you that this other president, when he showed up, did not understand initially, and this is true for most of us, how big the being stuck we were in the old way of doing business, and how much bigger the issue was that he needed to tackle. So I'm curious, What was it like for you when you first came to Goucher? How much of what we're looking at here around Goucher is really a stepping back and this wake-up call, or did you walk in and you're continuing something? My sense is you brought a new level of energy, and you had to look at and get people engaged in this question of what are the brutal facts with a positive vision. So did it look very different before you were there?
Well, yes and no. I mean, I always say the advantage of being a musician is that, especially a pianist, is that I've spent my whole life, listening to other people and making them sound better. That's really what I do for a living, right?
Yeah.
I listen to the drummer and the saxophonist, and I say, how can I, add a little something here? How can I goose it there? But ultimately my job is not to be noticed, but to make the whole ensemble sound better. So, I listened a lot and figured out what the strengths of the institution were and tried to tie in there. But it is true that, I certainly suggested lots of things, and I certainly made the case for change. But I will, there's a big caveat here. We're going through this same process. We're almost to the finish line. We've announced we're going from 33 departments to 10 or 11 centers. So, but the key is that I didn't touch the details, right? As the president, I said, do we need to examine all of our stuff? Do we need majors? Do we need these majors? Do we need credits? Do we need semesters? Do we need, the course hour to be the way that, all of the stuff that we take as sacred, starting one time a year, all of that sort of stuff. What of it really is essential for student learning, and which of it is just, kind of stuff that we do? And so, but then I let faculty figure out which of those things were important. The provost certainly decided, the centers was an important, what you called clusters, that was an important reorganization because we had so many chairs, and we had redundancy. We had 33 people in charge of 33 units, and we could have 10. Could we, in fact, do something new and innovative and something we'd like that was innovative, that was interdisciplinary and based in a different model? But the key is I then stepped away, right? I said, so, here are the parameters. We were doing a new curriculum as well. I said, so, nobody likes the old curriculum. Nobody thinks this is really serving students. So, I'll let you figure it out. But but there are some parameters. It can't be more expensive. It can't make it harder for students to double major. It has to have some grounding in what students want. It has to be true to our values. It has to be liberal arts, in our case. So, I set out the very, very broad parameters of what it needed to look like. But then I said, I'm not even going to go to the meetings. I'm not going to be involved in any way. I let the provost handle all that. And so now I've got two proposals, one for new curriculum and one for new organization of departments into centers, both of which came through a faculty process where faculty, in fact, decided to do it. They elected an ad hoc committee. They voted using their own procedures. So I've stepped way back from that and let that happen. But, so it's a funny push-pull. I think you have to be the advocate for change, and you have to allow for failure, which is a key part we can come back to.
There you go.
But then you have to be willing to say, I'm not sure what you're going to come up with. And in fact, about 2 months ago, we had a big shift in the thinking about the curriculum. And so one of the trustees asked me, well, what happened to the big questions? I said, they went away. It was a great idea, but that was not where it ended up.
See, that's the pivot that, I remember it's almost like you were helping lead or leading these conversations that we're in, because this idea of recognizing it's not about getting it right. It's about experimenting with the information we have and then getting in there. And when we see something's not working or if it fails, that we pivot and we focus on what we can do. And it sounds like that's the mindset you keep bringing, and you step back. The thing that strikes me about it, and because this is so top of mind for me, having been in front of done the 3 open workshops and then a town hall just yesterday, is this idea of there's a whole spectrum of reactions to this by the faculty, some of whom who are feeling like it's moving too slowly, all the way to people that have no interest in this and feel like you're betting the farm on something that you really should go a little more slowly. So how did you and your leadership, the provost, navigate that whole range of reactions and find a way to continue to build the trust with the majority of folks?
So the first thing is, there are various, models of management, a third, a third, a third. You're always going to have your early adopters, and you're always going to have a percentage of people who, over my dead body, it's never going to happen. And so you're really working to convince the middle. And it is convinced. I mean, in an academic setting, there's nothing I can do. I don't actually have any power. I have to be able to convince.
I love when presidents actually admit that. There's such freedom in that, isn't there?
There is.
I say you have no power.
I don't teach the classes. I don't mow the lawn. I don't do any of that stuff. And so, ultimately, if people want to undermine, especially with student success, right? If people want to undermine the project, they got a million ways to do it. So if people do not believe that getting students to graduation on time, retaining the students that we have, is the right thing to do, it's hopeless. You can blame the marketing department all you want. Just bring me better students. But if you don't treat the ones you have well, you're never going to get more students because parents ask about retention. So, you've got to convince people that the overall thing is worth saving and worth improving. But ultimately, you got to recognize that without the power of persuasion, you got zip. That's the first piece of that. And so but the second piece, though, as I say, I'm working to get the kind of neutral middle, is this thing about failure. So, I said all year long, I said, look, this is curriculum 1.0. I said, I don't know, here's the things I want. You'll do what you want. But the more important thing is that we establish a process so that we can change the curriculum more often. That it is like, okay, we just launched the iPhone. Let's have a party. Let's slap ourselves on the back. But by the way, Samsung is just going to announce something in a week. So how's the iPhone 2 coming? And that's not our model. That's the model for Silicon Valley. But higher ed has had the model. We are the keepers of tradition. We dress up like it's the Middle Ages once a year. And we've not had to change very often. So let's make sure it's really right. Let's make sure the curriculum is just perfect before we roll it out and make sure everybody... And, it's a wonderful thing that we want to make sure everybody has its place and that it's really going to be right. And think about how the psychology of that, right? When I write a book, that's forever. I don't want to slap that together. I'm not worried about the second edition of my book. There's not going to be one. I want to get it absolutely right. So that's the mindset and the psychology, and it's a good one for publishing a book. But it isn't going to work for curriculum because we now live in a world that's changing very, very rapidly. And so we have to be more reactive. We have to be out in front, and we have more competition. And so the sense that, this is curriculum 1.0, we'll come back and revise it, almost immediately start working on the next edition, that's an administrative challenge, but it shouldn't be a challenge for faculty. I always say, I'm the curator of risk. My job is to manage how much risk, and my job is also to manage the bureaucracy. So if it turns out we need 4 curricula for 4 different years of students, that's my problem. That's a nightmare, but it's really a bureaucratic administrative problem. If it's what's right for the students, we should do it. And so, but creating those kinds of flexible, nimble systems. I talk every day about how do we become more nimble. So,
and what are you discovering? How is that playing out in terms of? Are you seeing a willingness to engage in that conversation about being nimble, because it requires taking a risk and it requires people stepping outside their comfort zone and thinking themselves more as an innovator than somebody holding the status quo. So how is that going?
So the first thing is actually, I think that the key step is to think of yourself as an integrator, as part of the team. Right? Being a faculty member is a very solitary business. In fact, I often say, the prerequisite to being a faculty member is 5 years of solitary confinement. So, those of us who withstood that solitary time in the library, I'm one of those people. I like being alone. Give me a couple of good books and a few hours, and I'm happy. So, And there's a sense to think, well, my courses, my teaching, my students, and the shift to our teaching, our students, is what really matters. So we've talked a lot here about how skills are the new canon. Individual majors don't matter. I've presented a lot of information to the faculty. I always show the faculty what I tell parents. I say, because this is what works with parents. We're a liberal arts college. If I try to sell them an individual major and say, well, look, you need to have a major in X or Y, I probably don't have it. So what I'm selling is all of our majors together, which means if I'm going to really sell, it doesn't matter if you're a philosophy or a physics major, then there has to be some integration of skills that ultimately all of our students need to be able to write, all of our students need to be able to think. And while we talk about that, we've not really been able to demonstrate that we have an integrated product, an integrated curriculum, that every single student can do certain things.
That has been my big question around this whole conversation, which is, so much that you're asking of when you're developing these new curricula is around how you think about an evolving definition of student success. And that very much is a philosophical sort of institution-wide discussion, right? What does it mean to assess students? What does it mean to be innovative in the classroom? What does it mean to be engaging and to retain the students that we want? How have you seen these measures of student success evolve? And is there something that we're not thinking about that you're planning for tomorrow's university or tomorrow's successful student?
Sure. So, the first thing is, you are what you assess. Right. If you don't know what's happening, then you just don't know. And so if you want to say our students are learning to think critically or write or do something, then you've got to say, well, how are we going to measure that? How are we going to know that, and it can't just be, well, they passed a couple of courses. We've talked a lot about this. We've just redone the course evaluations, which is a small piece of this year. But when I got here, I said, well, what are we going to, so we survey our students all the time. What are we surveying? What really makes the most strategic sense? So we give all of our students, we survey, we test grit, tolerance for ambiguity, cultural sensitivity. Then I want to know if these things are changing. And then if I want to know how are they changing because of classrooms or roommate selection? Those are all, how the pieces go together. We got 3-year writing was pretty easy because everybody agrees that writing is an essential skill. Mm-hmm. So we have a new curriculum for that. But now we have to assess it. We need e-portfolios. We need a common writing rubric. But really, all of those things speak to integration across the units, that it can't just be, well, my class does this and your class can do whatever the hell you want. There has to be some sense of, if you're teaching after me, you need to build on the skills that I'm teaching. Is the second year more complex and is the third year more complex still? So maybe choice, which has been a key part of American higher education, is less important than progression. That's advancing for each year. That's a mindset change.
Yes, it is.
Huge both on behalf of the students and the faculty. We've been dealing with this at my own institution, and it's not just that we're presenting a logical, pragmatic, approach to progression, but it's that, wait a minute, as a faculty member in the middle, sandwiched between intro and advanced XYZ, now you're telling me I have to adapt to some other faculty member? I'm really okay with approaching this from a practical, sort of theoretical, standpoint. But when you're telling me to change the way I teach, that's much harder to embrace.
Not only where I teach or what I teach, but that the structure of what I call myself, this idea of moving from departments to centers or departments to clusters. It seems to me, Jose, that the key thing that we often overlook, because this is the hardest thing to do, it's one thing to say we want to be disciplinary, interdisciplinary. It's another thing to ignore the structures in place that people sort of fall back on as a way to sort of be insulated. And I think we underestimate how much these structures are part of the reason we're inhibited in terms of working across the aisle.
No, we call them disciplines for a reason. They are disciplining. They are ways of thinking, and they provide structure and they provide ways to understand knowledge. but they are also limiting. So, but a big piece of this though is real faculty anxiety.
Yes,
this has become a very stressful job. Our future is uncertain, and so the downside of trust and transparency is that people say, "Oh my gosh, my job is at risk," and it's like, well, all of our jobs are. I mean, I don't, we're not all going to survive. If the number of students in college continues to fall as it has the last 2 years, right, there won't be enough students to go around. There's certainly not enough paid students to go around. That means that the only way we stay in business is by putting somebody else out of business.
Yes,
that's icky. You don't like that. We want to all be friends and everybody have success.
All right, so I have 2 closing questions for you. First is, are you always this optimistic?
This is optimistic? Yes. Sure.
Oh, well, this is toned down. This is not. There's another level that we haven't seen yet. Yeah. So when I say optimistic, what I mean by that is, it's like giving the sense that we can do it and it's important to do. And in many ways, that's the role of a president. But I got to tell you, the way you share the story, from my perspective, if I was sitting in your campus as a faculty administrator or staff person, I would believe fundamentally that you believe not only is it possible, but it's important. So the short answer to that one, so that was an easy one. Here's the second one. Tell us a little bit about, I told you I just came back from Israel, the Jazz Shabbat service performances, 80 performances around the world. I am so fascinated by this. Can you just tell us what this is to close this thing out?
Sure. It's just I wrote some new prayers and some new tunes. It's traditional liturgy, and 6-piece band, and I wrote some new tunes for a few things, and I used some traditional tunes in other places, just rewrote the rhythm and the horn parts around it. But it's not a bad metaphor for what we're doing in the college, right? It's doing something new with something you've inherited, and that is ultimately what we do. And again, as a jazz musician, you take a risk. If you played a beautiful solo last night, that was last night. That's done. I'd rather hear a new but solo tonight than have you play the same solo you memorized last night. That's just not acceptable. So you take risks, but that's how you keep doing new things. And so that's part of my Jewish tradition. It's part of what I do as a college president, too.
I love that so much. These lessons of music, I think more of us can step back and really reflect on the experience of modulation and improvisation as leadership tools. That is just great.
There you go.
Thank you so much, José Bowen, for taking your time today to share your insights with us. Is there any place, besides sending people to the school's website, is there any place you would like to send people to learn more about what you're up to at Goucher, or is that the best place to go?
Yeah, the website's a good place. I mean, I do have a teachingnaked.com website, which has some of the other work that I do in pedagogy. I'm very interested in what we know about learning and how we adapt our college classrooms. But certainly the Goucher is trying to put a lot of those things into place, and to be a place where I can both stay true to the liberal arts and deliver the jobs of the future to our students.
Fantastic message to close us out. Dr. Bowen, thank you so much for your time today.
You're welcome. Thanks a lot.
And Howard, as always, it's a treat to catch up with you, my friend. It's been too long.
Yeah, fantastic. And this has inspired me to get back on the keyboard and do a little more practicing. So thank you, Dr. Bowen.
On behalf of José Bowen and Goucher College and Howard Teibel, I'm Pete Wright, and we will catch you next week right here on Navigating Change, the education podcast from Teibel Inc.